I want to show you how you can take a long list of data like this that really doesn't mean anything just to look at it and quickly turn it into this, an interactive dashboard in Microsoft Excel. With this, you can quickly click on buttons and drill down and find the important information you need. Hi, I'm Jamie and welcome to Teachers Tech. I'm going to be showing you how to make an interactive dashboard in Microsoft Excel today. And to do this, we're going to go through this step by step and looking at 3 different things to create this. We're going to be using pivot tables, charts, and slicers to create this. And you're going to see how quickly all this can come together. Let's get started. This is the data that we're going to be using to create our interactive dashboard today. If you want to use this data, I'll put a link down below in the description so you can download it and follow along with me. To explain this data, this is 2 years of fictional sales for a store, pretend store that sells hoodies and t-shirts for a superhero company. We'll call it the Superhero Hub. Now, let's get started with creating our dashboard. The first step that we need to do is turn this data, this range here, into a table. The reason we want to do this is later on, if we want to add more sales information, we can add it to a table and refresh, and this is going to update our interactive dashboard as well. So to do this, we can go up to Insert and click Table, or if you're clicked inside this, just go ahead and click on Control-T for the shortcut, and it will come right up. And it will have the right range in there. So your table does have headers. You can see them across the top. I'm going to hit OK. Now, I want to give a name to this table as well. So I'm going to go where it says Table 4 up here. I'm just going to call this Sales. And we'll leave it as that. I'll just hit Enter. Now I'm ready to start with pivot tables. So I'm going to go up to Insert Pivot Table. And I'm going to go from table or range and click on it. Here is the table that I just named, sales, and I'm going to put it on a new worksheet. We'll have several different worksheets at the bottom for these different tables and charts that we're going to create, and then we'll hide them later on. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on a new worksheet, and we're ready to add the fields that we need for our first chart. The first chart that I want to create is a monthly revenue trend, and we're going to do a line chart. You can make adjustments to the different type of charts if you want to show something else. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just rename this sheet down below. I'm going to call this revenue trend. If I click off, notice that the side goes away. You just need to click back in this to open it back up to see the fields. So now I need to add fields to this to get the correct data over here that I can create the chart from. And I'm going to go and select month to begin with. I'm going to drag it down and put it into rows. So if I drag this down into here, you'll notice this information, it goes over here. Now I need more information as well. So I'm going to put also some columns in here, and I want it to be the product category. So I'm going to have the hoodies and t-shirts. So if I look for my product category here, I'm going to put it over here into columns. If you want to learn more about pivot tables, I have a whole tutorial on that I'll put down below in the description, a link. You can check that out, or in the card. Now, the other thing I want to have is values. Right now, notice that there's no numbers over here. So I'm going to do revenue. So I'm going to go and take revenue and put it into values. So just like this now, I have all this information. And notice I can expand here too. So if I just click, it shows me the quarters. I don't really want to have quarters. It just broke up the years for me for this. And so I'm going to go back over here and just uncheck the quarters here. And you can play around and get the look that you want. So if I didn't want to have the months like this, I could click on here. If you don't want the years, you can see the differences. But I'm going to leave it like this, and we're going to go and create a chart from this now. If I'm clicked inside this pivot table over here, you're going to notice that we have pivot table analyze up top in the menu. And if you have that selected inside the ribbon, you're going to get pivot chart. So if I go ahead and click this, it defaults to the column, and maybe columns what you want to use, and you can pick what chart that you think will work best for you. But I'm going to use a line one. So I'm selecting this one. I could hover over the different ones, but I think this first one is going to work best for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, first thing I want to point out, notice that right here, it doesn't have a title. You can customize the charts. If I just hit this plus right here, Notice if I wanted to add a chart title, I could click on it. Then I could go over into here and give it a title like this, monthly revenue trend. So up to you if you want to show that or not. If you want to learn more about charts, I'll put a link to my tutorial down below about that. So I have this information. Notice I can stretch it out here to see more. And when I move this over to my dashboard, I can make it fit the way I need. Now, the other thing I want to add on this is going to be a slicer, and we're going to move slicers over to our dashboard when we're done and connect them all together. So making sure that I'm under the pivot chart analyze here, we have slicer. So the slicer I'm going to add on this page is going to be the different states. So I can check to see how each individual state is doing. So if I click on this, I can click on state and hit OK. So notice now I have just these 5 states selected. They're in blue. I can select them all, and then it's going to show me it. I can select one, and it will show me just Florida. So I can quickly look at the state. So it's a filter that it just gives it. I can quickly click on any of these or multiple ones to see the monthly revenue trend for that specific state or states. For my next pivot table and chart, I want to compare hoodies and t-shirts over the 2 different years to see units sold. So I'm going to go back to example data, making sure I'm clicked in here, insert, and it's going to be another pivot table. All of this, same as last time on a new worksheet. I'm going to hit OK. I want to call this something else just to keep things organized, and I'm going to call this t-shirts versus hoodies. So now I can go and add information by selecting the fields. So what did I say I wanted to compare? Well, let's start with the category here. I'm going to put this into columns, and you can see right away we have hoodies and we have t-shirts. I'll make this a little bit larger here. And the other thing that I want to add is going to be the year. So I have years here at the bottom. I'm going to put this into rows. And the last thing I want to add is the units sold. You could change this if you wanted to compare something else with them, but I'll put units sold into value. So right now I have this quick way to look at 23 and 24 and see what the total units sold are. Let's add a chart to this. So I'm going to go up top to pivot chart again. And you know what? I like this one. This is easy to read. I can see 23, 24. I can compare t-shirts to hoodies really quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. So like I showed you before, if you want to add a title to these, you can do that or make any adjustments. But I want to go ahead and add some slicers to this. And I'm going to go back to click in here. We're going to go to our pivot table analyze, add slicer, and we're going to add, let's say we want to add years to begin with. So I'm going to hit OK. So notice I can move this around anywhere. I can change the size. So even if I didn't want to have all that white there, I could bring this up here. The other thing I could do, if I right click on it, we have size and properties, slicer settings. So if I open this up, notice here, if I don't want to have the years month display, so if I click off of it, hit OK, now it'll just be a year one. I can put this back and I'll decide later what I want on the dashboard, but I'll go back to slicer settings and then just click this on again. So the other slicer that I want to add here is one for month. So let's say I go back up to my slicer to add it, pivot table analyze, slicer, and I'm going to pick this one. Notice there's a couple different months. I want to pick this one down here because it will just have the months labeled normally. This will reflect the column, how it's formatted there in the actual data. So I'm going to hit OK, and I have my different months. So now I could look at this information. I could look at it 2024. I could look at it 2023, highlight both, and to see it here. I could also look at March of the 2 years, compare things specifically. So it gives you a good way, again, to drill down in the information. All right, let's create one more pivot table and chart, then we'll get over to our dashboard and put everything together. Now for my last table and chart, what I want to do is find the top 5 states by profit. So I'm going to go and insert a new pivot table on a new worksheet. And let's go ahead and rename this top 5 states. And what do I want? I'll zoom up so we can see this a little bit better again. I only need 2 things. The state is going to go to the rows, and then we're going to have the profit I mentioned. So we have the profit and the states. We can format this as well. We can simply go back to home to format it. You can also right click, and then if you format cells, you're going to see how you can adjust the different formatting for your cells there as well. But let's go back here. Now I have all the states showing up. I only want, let's say, the top 5. If I do the drop down here, I can go value filters, and then I can go and pick at the very bottom, we have top. Here we have top. Notice we have some different changes if you want at the bottom, but I'm going to go 5 and we'll keep everything else the same. And now we have the top 5. So when I add my chart this time, so if I go back to pivot chart, here we have actually this one, again, this is easy to read. I can see the numbers well, the states. I think I like this one. Again, pick which one works the best for you. I'm going to hit OK. Do we want a title on this? I could double click in here since they gave me the option here. So I'll just put the same thing, top 5 states. I'll say by profit here. The other thing I want to point out, if you wanted to have different increments or anything here, if I just double click in here, on the side here, we have these different options that we can change all the different ones. So under the options here, notice that here are the units by 1,000. So if I wanted it by 5,000, I could adjust how far they're between each one here as well. I'm just going to leave them. I just wanted to make sure that you saw where the differences are. So now we have our 3 different charts and we have some slicers. So let's bring them all together onto a dashboard. Before I create my dashboard, I'm just going to create one more slicer here. I'm going to click into my pivot table to pivot table analyze, and I just want one for product category, just so I can switch between hoodies and t-shirts quickly. Okay, I think I have everything. Let's go now and click on just the new sheet here, and we're going to call this one dashboard, just like that. And the other thing is, I think I want it at the front, so I'm just going to drag it over to the front. So the next step is just taking all of these different things, the charts and slicers, and moving them over to the dashboard page. So if I select this, I could go Control C, Control V for copy paste, or I could Control X to cut it. So I'm going to cut it. But rather than do one at a time, I'm going to hold Shift down, and now I have this selected, this slicer selected, and this chart. So I'm going to go Control X. It cuts it from there. I'm going to go to the dashboard and Control V. So now I can go and start placing these loosely where I want. I'm just going to move everything over to begin with, and then I'm going to make it more graphically appealing. So I'll go to t-shirts. I'm going to go and hold down Shift as I select them all here. And then I'm going to go Control X and go to my dashboard and paste it. And I'm just going to put them kind of loosely where I might need them again here. And I'm just going to put all the slicers. So we have all the different slicers here. We have this chart, we have this chart, and we just need to go grab our one more. So let's go Control X, go to our dashboard. Make sure you're clicked off of this, so I don't want to replace that one, and Control V. So now I have all my information. Let's make this look a little bit better now. First thing, let's check the slicers. Let's go ahead and select a few different states to see what's happening with the slicers. So if I select these 5, notice this one just moved. If I select a few months here, well, this chart just here moved. If I select hoodies, it was only this one. If I select both, again, it's only this one. That's because they're not all connected, and you can connect them so that when you select one of these slicers, it will make the changes in all charts. If you right click on them, if you notice we have report connections. If I click on this and just stretch this out, I need to make sure that I hit OK, and you need to do this on all of them. So if I quickly go through and make sure all the different pivot tables are connected in here, just by making sure you stretch them out so you can see all of them. And I just have this one more to report the connections to. And now if I go and use any of the slicers, notice they all reflect each other. So they're all different connected. So if I wanted to see the year now, I'm looking at 2023 Texas, those 4 months, and of hoodies and t-shirts. Now it's just hoodies. So they're all going to be moved and connected to the slicers. Some other formatting I might want to do with the slicers would be this. If I go ahead and just right click on them and I open up the size and properties, notice over here I have some different choices. I can make sure that they're all going to be the same width. So if I want to say, you know what, I want them all to be 4.5, I can adjust them to each one like this. So now I could go to my next one, and I don't have to open it up each time because it's already open, and just quickly go and type in that, and then they'll all adjust. Because sometimes when you're dragging them, it's hard to get them to the exact match of each other. This way it makes it easy. The other thing that you can do with your slicer, maybe I don't want to eat up this much room with all the different months on this one, and I can go and choose to say, you know what, I want 2 different columns. So now I have a little bit more room that I can size this. And as I showed you before, maybe we don't need to have the column headers on these because it's pretty self-evident that what these are. So I can go through and go to my my slicing settings here and make sure that I can just click off on all of these. So go through and set those slicers the way you want, and then I'm going to start moving some things around. If you take a look at my slicers, I've started lining them up around the 10 row here. The other thing I would point out, I took off all the headings off them. This is all optional depending what you want. And if I just right click on this and go to the slicer size and properties, with position and layout, I checked off this, disable resizing and moving. I can uncheck it if I do need to change it, but I can't move these right now or resize. I just want to kind of lock them in place. Now, some other things with formatting I could do with any of these charts. If I click on any of these, I can go to design, and you'll see that we have all these different options. If I hover over how you can change them depending on what look you want. I'm just going to keep them pretty plain Jane here. So I'll just line these up things a little bit, and I'm going to put them around maybe on the 5th row here and about halfway through this one cell. I'll take this one here and just give it a little bit of space in between. I'll put this one down below here, and I'm going to just stretch it out. Now, if I wanted to add a title to this, what I can do is if I go to insert, I could type in a cell just like normally in Excel, but I'm going to go and put in a shape, and I'm going to use the rectangle with the rounded corners, and I'm going to just draw this out like this here. And I can take the round off the corners a little bit by just dragging this yellow back, and if I want a little bit more square. So if I go and just put in, let's say I put in a title here, I'm going to call this Heroic Insights. So I'll type this in just like this, Heroic Insights, because remember what the store is about. It's about superhero paraphernalia with t-shirts and hoodies. And I'll also put the year here, let's say 2023, 2024. So this will be our sales data. I can make this larger here by increasing the font just like normally, and I can even change if I wanted to have a different font like this. So I'll leave it like this here. And now what else can I do with this? Well, let's say I want to add something to the side here. So if we want to have more, maybe this is good the way you have it. I could insert another one now. And if I go back to my shape, and I'll use the same shape, maybe I draw another one right down here to the bottom. And now I can take this yellow. I'll just make this a little bit like this. But you're going to be thinking, well, you're covering this. Well, if I right click on this, what I can do is send to back. Now this is over. So maybe I want to uncheck all these and move them away from the edge and place it just so I have the same space on each. I can still size this up a bit to match all of these. Maybe I want to add a logo. So under insert, we can go to pictures. I'm going to place over cell here and choose from this device. We have a superhero one I created with AI. So here it is, much too large here, my superhero hub. I'm going to size this down and just place it up here. Now we can keep doing more things to this. You have a spot down here where maybe you want to put another chart you could place in or move things around. We could also make things larger still. So even if I wanted this to be slightly larger like this, to stretch things out, and I can do the same thing with each of these charts here. So you can really maneuver things exactly the way you want. If you want to add backgrounds to any of these also, I could go back to insert, go to my shape, and then let's pick this. And as an example, I'll draw this over top of this one here, and I'll just size this up a little bit. I'm going to nudge it over with my arrow keys. And like I showed you before, you could send this to the back now. So if I right click, I could send to back, and then I could align this chart inside of here. So you have lots of different options on how you want to decorate it. The other thing that you can change here is you see you have all the cells showing. You can turn those off. If I go to view and we have grid lines, if I just uncheck this, now if I was starting to fill these up with a bunch of colors, you can see how it looks better without the grid line, and I can adjust this. Maybe I want to go right across here, and I can shrink this back and get everything matched up. I could add a different color one. The other thing is, once you get all these colors in place, what you can do is, if I go to page layout, so I've only picked this one color right here, but if I drop down on my themes, look what happens when I hover over. All the colors, everything comes right through. So if I wanted it to be a different color, I can just simply click on a theme. Notice that the fonts changed, the colors changed, so you can quickly adjust your entire dashboard's look. I made a couple adjustments. I just centered all these slicers in the middle here. I added a little bit of gray, doing the same thing that I showed you before. Like I said, you can keep on changing this, adding different graphs. If you want to change any of these different charts, you can just right click on them and you're going to see that we have changed chart type. So if I wanted it to be a bar or any other ones, I can hit OK and it makes those quick changes. The other thing I want to point out is you might want to share this with people. So you go up and you can hit share and add the people just like normally how you would share in Microsoft Excel. Then they can go through and start digging down in the data, making it in an easy way through this interactive dashboard. But maybe you want to hide some of these different worksheets down here. You don't want to have people just look at those and just keep them on the dashboard. If I select revenue trend and hold shift down and select example data, actually I'll do that one more time, hold shift down and select them all like this, then you notice they're all selected. If I right click and go hide, now you don't see them. So if you were sharing this, all those worksheets would be hidden. If you want to show them again, if I just right click and go to unhide, you'll get the options of which ones you want to unhide. So I could select them all, hit OK, and then they're going to be back again. What happens when we get new data? What happens to the dashboard? Let me show you how you can add some new data and then refresh it. I'm going to make a quick change to this chart. I just noticed something and I didn't notice it before. I'm going to take out this month. This will give it a little bit cleaner look across the bottom here, just showing the years and the months just like that written. All right, let's go over to the example here. And what I'm going to do is just paste in some more information. And notice the date, it's 2025 January. Since this is in a table format, I can refresh this and it's going to update on my dashboard. I'm going to go over to the dashboard. I'm just going to right click on this slicer here. Notice I have a refresh option. As soon as I do that, look at this. We have 2025. If I go and select all of these now, let's say I select to 2025, notice on this chart, we have 2025 now. It's been updated. So I can start looking at the newest data through January. So even if I just pick 2025 by itself, only January comes up. So what do you think? This is pretty easy, right? Now you get this interactive dashboard where I can look at, let's say, this chart for the 23, 24. I can see where there's fluctuations and I get an idea that that's happening in the summer. So I can see t-shirt sales going up in the summer and hoodies going down and vice versa. So I can see patterns in this very easy, or looking from state to state. Is this something you could see yourself using, especially with sharing data with others? Let me know down below in the comments. Thanks for watching this week on Teachers Tech. I'll see you next time with more tech tips and tutorials.